Welcome back, my friends. And it is time for you and I to get our minds aligned with the truth of God. I hope you're ready to just take a time to take a deep breath, set aside the cares of the day for just a moment as we kind of do a reset on our thinking so that we can approach the day in a way that gives us hope for living rightly. That's really what matters today, is that we live in a way that shows that God is at work in our lives. Let's look at 1 Peter chapter 4. I'm going to reread the passage that we talked about yesterday because it gives us some context, and then it's going to lead us into a new thought for today. Peter says, "Since therefore Christ suffered in the flesh, arm yourselves with the same way of thinking. For whoever has suffered in the flesh has ceased from sin, so as to live for the rest of the time in the flesh, no longer for human passions, but for the will of God. For the time that is past suffices for doing what the Gentiles want to do, living in sensuality, passions, drunkenness, orgies, drinking parties, and lawless idolatry. With respect to this, they're surprised when you do not join them in the same flood of debauchery, and they malign you. But they will give account to him who is ready to judge the living and the dead. For this is why the gospel was preached even to those who are dead, that though judged in the flesh the way people are, they might live in the spirit the way God does." Wow, what a passage of Scripture. Peter is telling us that our mindset, the way we think, is one of the most powerful things about the way we show up in the world. He's saying that when you have your mind set properly, like Jesus did when he was headed to the cross, it enables us to live for the rest of our time in the flesh, is the way Peter says it, the rest of our time on the planet, no longer for human passions, but for the will of God. You see, friends, once Jesus has come to reside within us through our faith in him, we have the choice every day to set our minds on his way of living, his way of thinking. We can choose. I'm no longer in this for myself. I'm no longer in this to satisfy my human passions. I'm in this to glorify Jesus Christ and to bring about great change in the world through the power that he provides me. And Peter makes the point in verse 3 that we've all had plenty of time in the past for doing all those human passion sort of things. He gives us a whole list of them as examples. He says living in sensuality, passions, drunkenness, orgies, drinking parties, and lawless idolatry. I mean, he gives us a very sordid looking list. But I know that some of those things are familiar to some of the people who are hearing my voice right now, because those were your past. Some of those descriptions describe where you were in life before Jesus called you into his glorious salvation. And he's saying that when you have turned your mind, your will away from those things because of what Jesus has done for you, the people around you with whom you used to do those things are not going to understand. They're going to be surprised that you don't join them in that same sort of behavior that you used to. And they're going to make fun of you. They're going to malign you. And he's saying, but part of that mindset that you've put on is to understand they will give an account to him who's ready to judge the living and the dead. You see, their mistreatment of you in that moment is not the thing that should motivate you. You see, if you put your focus on the mistreatment, you'll be tempted to back off on the new life you've determined to live. But he's saying, you need to remember that mistreatment is one of the things God will take care of in time. He's ready to judge the living and the dead. He's saying you need to remember that you are now living according to the power of the Spirit. This is a new way for you. This is a new you. And the life you live today is possible through Jesus. My friends, get your mind around this truth. Suffering is not what matters. Getting out of suffering is not what matters. Living for Christ is what matters, and it's our way of thinking, our new mindset that enables us to maintain that throughout the days of our lives. Join me again tomorrow.